Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. We have a really special guest, a very own St. Edward's alumni, Jake Nishimura. He's the Director of Digital Marketing at the Messina Touring Group. And Jake, thanks for being here tonight. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Um, I appreciate being invited. I figure I can go over a little bit of my background and kind of how I transitioned from St. Ed's graduate school to my position that I have now, and then talk a little bit about the scope of my current job, and then leave as much time as you guys need to ask me any questions that that you'd like at the end. I graduated from St. Ed's. Got my MBA when they had the full-time day program. We were like the second to last cohort before they actually dropped that program. But so I graduated in 2015. What I appreciated so much about my time at St. Ed's is the focus of the MBA program that in the form that it took then was in digital media management. And they did a lot of work and case studies that had to do with the entertainment industry. And that's when I made the decision to go back to school and get my MBA. That was my main focus. My goal was to get into music. I had participated in music mostly on the local scene, on the musician side. But it was a really deliberate decision that I made to go back to school to try to get into the music industry on the industry side. And while I was there, it allowed me to explore things outside of the classroom as well. So when from day one, I started looking for internships, because going back to school and taking out student loans to live to where I wasn't working at the same time freed me up to take on positions and internships that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do otherwise. So I very quickly found myself working for a small local music tech company, but mostly artist management promoter type company. That we did a little bit of everything, and quickly went from intern to right hand person of the guy that was running the show. And through that opportunity, while I was in school, I ended up becoming the marketing manager for Float Fest, which is a music festival in San Marcos, and kind of helped get that festival off the ground. I was marketing manager for them for the first 3 years of the event. The first 2 while I was still in school at St. Ed's. At the same time, I also was working part-time for a small digital marketing agency outside of the music industry. So I was really trying to flex both muscles at the same time, because I knew that digital marketing was kind of like a natural fit for me. So by the time that I was ready to graduate, I had 2 years of industry experience under my belt, plus I was already on my way on the digital marketing side. And it just so happens that Messina Touring was hiring their first in-house digital person. They weren't sure what exactly they needed, but at the time they knew that digital was going to be very important. And so Louis Messina, the CEO of Messina Touring Group, actually knew the director of the program at the time. And when Louis reached out and said, "Hey, I'm looking to hire this position," I think I put myself in a position to be kind of like the natural fit for that recommendation. And so it was kind of like a right place, right time situation. And I kind of slotted right into that role. But yeah, I can share my screen. I have a little bit of a presentation. It's real quick about kind of the scope of my job and what it became. It was not this when I first started. Like I said, like they weren't quite sure exactly what they needed, and so I had a lot of freedom to build my department into what I thought was the best fit for what they needed. So this is kind of like where it stood in right at the end of the before times, like right before the pandemic. This is kind of like where it stood. It's going to be a little bit different now as we transition back from COVID. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions about that too when I'm through. But just for context, this is kind of like where it was at the peak of MTG here. So let me share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see that? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Great. The classic Zoom question. Okay. Yeah. So MTG, we are concert promoters based out of Austin, Texas, but we work on national tours with a lot of these artists that you see here. We kind of have a unique role in the promoter world where Louis likes to say that we work with clients that want to work with us, and the way that manifests itself is that we're not out there constantly bidding for new tours. Once we have a client, they tend to stay with us for the duration of their careers. Taylor, for example, has been a client of MTG since like the very beginning of her career. Same with Sean. As you can see here, we do mostly pop and country, and these are like arena and stadium size acts that we're working with. My role as the director of digital marketing is comprised of these three main buckets of paid media, content, and partnerships. But my day-to-day and every time like we sit down to plan out a tour, it always starts with research. I do a lot of research, not only in things that are directly applicable to the digital marketing space, but I help kind of spearhead overall research and do some like general market research for the company as a whole. So my job really starts when they're starting to plan out a tour. Typically I get involved when they get a list of markets that they're considering, and I do a lot of research as to like, the top, on a 50-date tour, the top 40 cities are obvious, right? We're going to LA. We know we're going to New York. We know we're going to Dallas. Like there's just markets that are always going to be there, but there are always those like kind of like B markets that we have to decide between, and that's kind of where I'll start there and jump in there when I can. But like I said, all the research that we do, and demographic research on our artists and all that it helps inform our overall strategy. And paid media is a big thing, is a big bucket of what I do. So I'm in charge of creating the digital marketing budgets for all of our tours, and then coming up with a targeting strategy, and deciding what platforms to run ads on, and that type of thing. And then we have an internal media agency. So Messina Touring Group, we're co-partners with AEG Presents, which is the second largest concert promoter in the United States. They have an internal media team that I work with very closely. Once I have my paid media strategy mapped out, and they're the ones that are actually like executing the buys. Like I said, the department has changed a lot since I started. When I first got there, I was the department of one. There was no media team. I was doing all the buys myself. There was a tour that we did, I think Eric Church in 2016. There were like 80 markets or something, and I placed every single buy for that, every single digital media buy for that entire tour. Luckily, I don't have to do that anymore. But that's kind of where it started, and where kind of we've ended up. The second bucket that I do a lot of work in, that's a huge part of my job, is on the content side, both developing organic content and for the artists to post on their own social feeds, but then also paid content for our paid media ads. I also do a little bit of work in overall tour branding. So it really depends on the artist. Sometimes an artist will come with like a fully baked idea about like exactly how they want the artwork for the tour to look. And in that case, like I just take their vision and help translate that into social content that we can use for organic and paid media. But there are other artists that we work, even more closely with, that put it on us to assist in really developing the overall branding for a tour, and I play a pretty big role in determining what that ends up looking like. I have some content examples here to give you an idea of things that I've worked on. The first video that I'm gonna play, it was for Taylor's Reputation tour in 2018. And this is an example of our like bread and butter tour trailer that we put together. Usually it's a mix of past live footage and sometimes music videos. This is kind of music video heavy. The reason I wanted to share this is because it's kind of an example of like at the time, the look of this tour was kind of significantly different from any of the tours that she's done in the past. And this album cycle generally was like a departure from what she had been putting out in the past. So we had to be very selective as to like what past live footage we use in the new trailer, since the tour hadn't played off yet. So we didn't have like footage from the tour that we were promoting. So we leaned a lot on the music videos and cut in some choice live footage where it was appropriate. But just kind of wanted to show this as an example.
Are you ready for it?
So the challenge there was to like really try to bring the energy of a live show without having like a lot of source live footage. And that was one of my favorite trailers that we've done. The second example is kind of like a filler content piece where we didn't use any source footage at all, no music videos, no live footage, and like no direct participation from the artist. Just as an example of things that we put together with our creative agency as kind of supplemental content to like some of the main pieces that we were putting together. This is for Ed's Divide tour, Ed Sheeran's Divide tour. Oh. Oh, why is this playing? Sorry, hold on, let me go back. Well, that's annoying. All right. Well, that's annoying. I work in digital marketing. I can't get PowerPoint to work, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. I'm just going to play it natively from here. And then the last example that I wanted to show is this is kind of what we've been moving towards, where we get direct artist participation and we organize custom content shoots with artists and put together a list of questions and content ideas that we capture with the artist. And typically it doesn't go exactly how we plan it out, but we're often able to put like some creative things together in post afterwards. And this is a great example of that. This is for Kelly Clarkson. The idea here was to, at the time, Queer Eye on Netflix was like a huge thing. And Jonathan Van Ness had like a quote that became a meme that he was like channeling Kelly Clarkson. So we wanted to kind of play on that, but Kelly kept messing up the line. And so the idea with this video is typically on sale day, really hardcore fans, it can be a stressful day for some of them because they're concerned about getting tickets, and sometimes for a hot tour tickets go fast. So we were trying to get Kelly to like talk to her fans and tell them, let them know that it's going to be okay, everybody's going to get tickets, but she kept messing up the line. So this is kind of what it ended up as, and it actually came out better than we had planned it to begin with.
All right, y'all. Like Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye says, you're Kelly Clarkson's song. You're Kelly Clarkson's song. You've got this. You're strong. You're Kelly Clarkson's song, and you've got this. Don't let me down. Failures are not welcome. You got this. I got it. You've got this. I'm sweating my ass off. I'm Kelly Clarkson. I'm strong. I've got this.
And what was nice about what ended up happening with that video is we tagged Jonathan Van Ness when we posted that to Kelly's socials, and he ended up picking it up and reposting it to his account. And Kelly has a huge LGBTQ fan base, and so it really helped us get additional eyeballs on the tour that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So it really worked out for us. And I can just play from here. The last major bucket that I work in is on the digital partnership side. There is a digital partnerships team at AEG, but I work really closely with them on developing strategic partnerships for each of our tours. Partners that we've been successfully able to work with in the past include Spotify, Apple Music, Postmates, TikTok, Lyft, Uber were big ones for us. Pandora were what used to be a big one, not so much anymore. But custom. We work with our partnerships team to put together like custom promotions for each of our artists that fit their brand and the tour that we're putting together. And we've come up with some really clever, interesting partnerships in the past, and that really goes a long way to get us additional awareness for the tours. So and the last thing that I do a lot of work on is reporting. Obviously, digital marketing reporting is infinitely more possible than any of the traditional marketing channels between radio, TV, and such. So I do a lot of reporting, not just on how our paid media is performing, but how the tour is trying to measure awareness for how many eyeballs we're getting on the tour, and then making strategic decisions based on how well either paid media is performing, or if we think awareness is a problem, we can adjust our strategy from there. So I spend a lot of time reporting, and that ties back in with the research data piece that everything starts with to begin with anyway. So that's just a quick high level overview on kind of what I do, and more than happy to take any questions that you guys have. If I can stop share. There we go.
Hi, I just have a question. How much say do the artists have in which partnerships they end up getting?
A lot of say. Typically the way that process works is we make a list of partners that we have relationships with and that we think are relevant to the artist. We go back to the artist prior to pitching those partners and say, hey, we think Uber, Spotify, and Postmates are a good look for this tour. We think that this is where your fans are. One, do you have any existing relationships that could conflict with these, that would get rid of those like immediately off the top? Two, do you have any past relationships with these folks that was positive, negative? How do you feel about these overall? And three, like, are you currently working with them on anything on the album or management side that may interfere, or we may actually want to piggyback on top of? And then from there we would then pitch the partners, and they have a lot to say. So
Got it.
I have a question. So you talked a lot about, you interning and having different experiences at different companies. How much would you say that you learned in your MBA program versus like doing stuff on the job?
I learned a lot on the job. Not to say that some of the larger lessons that I learned in grad school didn't apply, but the music industry and like live specifically is like a really specific skill set. So yeah, definitely learned a lot on the fly.
Feel free to also enter your questions in the chat.
I had a question, like adding on to that. So would you like recommend like a grad school for someone like trying to break into the industry, or do you think like internships and like getting more experience is like a valuable asset to have?
That's a great question. So I would say, starting from zero, that experience and relationships are most important. That being said, I would not have been in the position that I'm in right now had I not gone to grad school. So it's hard for me personally to say like, oh, it might not be worth it for you in that sense because it paid off for me. But at the same time, the music industry is really a relationship heavy industry. So getting that experience and like just getting your hands dirty, saying yes to as many opportunities as you can is probably more valuable. Although I guess I'm talking to a group of people who are at university right now. So I guess take that with a grain of salt.
If you could do it again, would you have chosen St. Ed's as like your MBA program, or would you have gone somewhere else knowing what you know now?
I mean, if I were, I like where I'm at. So I'm very thankful to be where I'm at, to work on the tours that I work on and the artists that I work with, and to be able to do that in Austin, there's not a lot of industry in Austin. You know, I feel very fortunate. So I would not chance it if I had the chance to go back and do it again, like I'd make the same decision because I'm happy where I'm at. So yeah.
And we have a question from Antonio in the chat. He says, what's the best way to create connections with the media or venues when managing a small local band?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, if we're talking about Austin specifically, it's such a tight knit but like welcoming group of folks. So you know, I haven't done a lot of work with smaller local bands, but you know, get on any build when we get live music back soon, hopefully. Get on, you know, take those opening spots in town for you know, play the local gigs and make sure to you know, be polite when you get there, treat the sound engineers right, you know, make sure you're bringing as many folks as you can out to shows, but you know, take advantage of any opportunity that you can to play, and you know, but make sure to like network when you're there as well. It's really important to establish as many of those relationships as you can.
And then Jack Rice asks, have you been helping artists plan virtual concerts or tours, or how have you helped support artists during COVID?
Yeah, yes and no. Our artists have done a little bit. We, at the beginning, early pandemic days, we did Blake Shelton did like a drive-in worked with Encore drive-in series, something like that. And we did a custom shoot with Blake at like an empty venue where he filmed a live performance with his full band, and then that got licensed to like a company that had a network of drive-in theaters across the United States, and then they sold tickets to that show. Shawn Mendes did an Amex live stream in October or November of last year that we were a little bit involved with, but that's really not our wheelhouse. So we were mostly playing like intermediaries between who was actually producing that show and the artists. We think of ourselves as an extension of management. So in the live space, anytime, even with a virtual concert or like a pre-recorded concert, in Blake's case, we're the point of contact for the people producing those shows. So I did a little work, but to say that like we promoted and produced those, I think would be an overstatement, you know. So we did a little bit. And I can I see the questions in the chat now. Do you expect in-person concerts to make a return in the future? Yeah. Yeah, we're actually getting ready to start announcing some major tours here in the next month or two. So we're very optimistic about the direction that it's heading. And you know, I think in Q4 this year, you're going to start seeing a lot of live shows, and a lot, and you know, we're not the only ones that think that. The majority of the industry kind of thinks that way right now, and traffic in terms of like the number of concerts that are being planned right now is kind of insane. We're all kind of on top of each other. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but I think that there's a lot of pent up demand there, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all shakes out. What advice do I have for anyone wanting to go into the music industry as far as marketing goes? Say yes to as many opportunities as you can. I think, you know, what helped get me to where I am is that I made the extra effort to seek out opportunities that were available to me. And, people, especially on the local level, like folks need help and they need people that can, do a variety of different things. And that, and then that, you can transition that into marketing at a certain point, but, get your hands dirty with as many things as you can and make as many connections as you can. And we have somebody in our office that I think started as a ticketing intern and is now like director of marketing. She does all of the Taylor stuff, all of the Ed stuff, and but that's because she put in she paid her dues at the beginning and did a lot of entry level stuff, but worked her way up into the position that she's at. So just start doing it. There are a lot of people that could use the extra help for sure. Chelsea. As someone who's going to be studying abroad to try to find internship opportunities in countries like Japan and South Korea, do you think there are opportunities for digital marketers there, such as those focusing on American promotions for their artists? Possibly. I don't do a lot of work internationally. We do work with a lot of our artists on international tours, but we really rely heavily on local promoters and local teams to fulfill like the marketing side of that. I don't know a ton about what the job prospects are, like what marketing looks like in those countries to say one way or the other. I would assume so. A lot of our artists are touring those countries, so I would think so. What do you think the best way to make long-lasting connections with others during COVID is? That's a great question. That's something that I've also been struggling with this last year too. More recently, I've been reaching out to contacts that I've made and just making sure I'm catching up with folks. And I've had a lot of like really good talks with people that I normally wouldn't have like in-depth conversations with over the last like 3 or 4 months, because I've made an extra like extra point to do that. And depending on like what vertical they're in the music industry, that some people have a little bit more time right now, but I think a lot of people are craving that interaction, and so it's been helpful for me to have those conversations. But yeah, that is definitely something that has been on my mind too, because like I mentioned, the music industry is very relationship oriented. So I definitely feel that question.
Antonio has been raising his hand. I think he has a question.
Yeah, so I manage a local band in Mexico City. So I was wondering what's the best way to like grow the audience, especially now during COVID? Like, is it through like EPKs for for playlists, or like trying to get radio time or something like that? Or like what would your advice be?
Yeah, I should put the caveat up front that like I'm not on the management side. That being said, I think that there is a lot of opportunity now in the digital space, especially to really kind of make a name for yourself prior to before shows come back. Pre-COVID, I would have said play as many live shows as you can, get out in front of people and build your brand that way. I think that there are some interesting opportunities to be had in the digital space, especially with platforms like TikTok, where you don't have to have an existing following to really break through because of the way that algorithm works. so it really gives those folks who, you know, are creative and can come up with interesting ways to create content to really get in front of some new eyeballs. In terms of playlisting and radio and stuff, I do know Mexico City is one of the biggest streaming markets in the entire world. So that probably bodes well for playlisting and such. But again, like I don't have a lot of experience to speak from on the playlisting side or the radio side. That's really not my specialty. So I wish I could give you a better answer than that, but it's just like not in my job description at the moment. So what do I wish I knew when I first started in the music industry that I know now? That's a good question. Man. You know, I think it gets back to I'm a natural introvert, unfortunately. And so that really doesn't serve me well when it comes to the music industry. I really kind of have to force myself to be, you know, to go out of my way to shake more hands and meet more people. You know, I knew that, you know, from a high level, like I knew like, oh yeah, it's a relationship business, of course, but like it really is, you know, it's really, it really can help you out, and it goes a long way, you know, making those connections, building those relationships. I wish I would have known that when I started. I probably would have put a little bit more effort on it on the front end. But I feel like I'm playing catch up on it now. But yeah, I think that's probably my answer there.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Nico's had his
What's my favorite proudest project I've worked on? I think 2018, 2019 was like the peak of my work experience in this current position. I think in 2018, we at the time we only had like 20 employees, and at the end of that, by the end of 2018, we had 3 of the top 5 highest grossing tours in the world with a staff of 20. So that was probably my proudest moment. Like we worked our butts off and we sold a lot of tickets, and we were able to maintain that high level personalized service that we really pride ourselves on in probably like the most chaotic year that we've had in terms of volume. So that's probably my proudest moment.
I think Nico has a question. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. So I wanted to ask you, in terms of deciding, or in terms of all the different things you use to, advertise the live shows and the tours and stuff, like trailers or like targeted advertising and different websites, which have y'all found, or which do you find to be most effective most of the time? Or is it something that depends on the artist or the location, or how does that go?
Yeah, it really depends on all that. Different artists are going to have, in terms of like paid media strategies, different artists are going to have, you know, like a George Strait fan is going to buy a ticket on Facebook. They're probably not going to buy a ticket on Instagram, you know? So yeah, the artist matters, but also it's also really localized too. You would be surprised, like the same artist, the same tour, but in different markets, how wildly different like some of the CPAs and some of the metrics end up being between the two markets, of markets that are of similar size in terms of population. So that can be really interesting too. But in terms of like, what's the most important thing in terms of digital advertising? Content. If we can get, we've had the most success with artists who have been open to letting us be creative in terms of content and making themselves available to be able to capture that content too. It's really difficult to continue to try to like optimize a digital campaign when you have the one trailer that you've been using since the very beginning and it's 4 months later and people are tired of seeing, you can write a million different versions of the copy, but if it's that same video, people are just going to keep scrolling right past it. So content has been probably the most important aspect of success in terms of digital performance.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Jake.
Yeah.
What's your past year looked like with COVID? What have you been up to?
Yeah. Not as much as I was in 2019. A lot of data work. I did a lot of data work, a lot of data work that I normally don't have the time to do. I also stepped in and helped out the AEG data team who, because of some furloughs and staff, the whole industry downsized. So they were shorthanded. I had the skill set in terms of the technical aspects of like SQL and Python and stuff to help them with a lot of larger data projects. So a lot of data, a lot of spreadsheets. I'm very much looking forward to opening Photoshop again at some point. Looking and going through live footage and picking out selects there. So I'm really looking forward to flexing that creative part of my brain soon, and it's coming. But lots of data work.
And in terms of data, like what specifically were you looking at or researching?
Yeah, so one, I was looking at a lot of trend, not to get too in the weeds, but a lot of trend and larger demographic audience type reporting for our artists. And a lot of market specific research for our artists. But on the AEG side and like on a company wide, like macro level, I was doing a lot of, so we don't own, as promoters, we typically don't own the point of sale for selling tickets, right? So we, typically Ticketmaster is, or some other third party is managing that. So the data feeds that we get from those third parties aren't necessarily in the format that we need them to be in our CRM system to effectively leverage for marketing or even to create reporting against. So I did a lot of like data mapping and a lot of on the festival side, especially, I did a lot of data mapping to be able to use that across business units, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. How do you think concerts are going to be like when they start up again? Will there still be many shows, or will it be limited tour for the artists and crew safety? So I can only really speak to the tours that we're working on right now, and we're not, so at the level that we're at on the arena and stadium level, like we're not, it doesn't make economic sense for us to go back at like half capacities. So we needed to wait until it was looking as if we were going to be able to do full capacity shows. So that was really like the major thing that we were waiting for. That being said, I think that there's going to be a lot of additional safety measures that are going to be taken at the venue level, masks, A lot of venues are working on like different air filtration systems and all that stuff. There's definitely going to be different protocols for like backstage and staff. So it'll be a little different, but our shows are going to be full. We're not gonna go back until it's safe to do full shows. Yeah. As technology continues to advance and new social media platforms rise, what do you think is important for digital marketing students to look into or learn? I would spend a lot of time like on the data side, honestly. The industry needs folks that are good at analyzing data and can manipulate data in a presentable way. So get really good at Excel, learn SQL, understand Google Analytics, although that is going to start changing here is once Google starts getting rid of the cookie. Learn the ins and outs of things like Facebook Business Manager, learn how to buy ads on Facebook. These are all hard skills that you can learn on your own outside of school with like free classes. I would definitely start there. In terms of your point of sale and content marketing work, can you talk a bit about how you balance that workload relationship with the actual presenting arena venues and their internal teams? Is that stuff they also work with MTG on? Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, I work really closely with all the venues at all of our shows. Typically what that relationship looks like for us is on the marketing side is we rely on our local venues to give us insight about how that market is unique and what channels they may respond to over just like your standard channels that we would be on in terms of marketing. If there's like a publisher in town that is just like a local publisher that you have to work with, like we rely on our local venues to do that. Outside of that, we handle all the marketing internally, and we're constantly like pushing content down to them for their social channels and their websites. We see and approve anything that they put out on the marketing side that has to do with our shows. Like we have to sign off on everything. So yeah, we work really closely with the venues to make sure that the messaging stays consistent across all markets, all shows for all of our tours. How many women do I work alongside? I know the music industry is pretty male dominated. I'm fortunate enough to work in an office that has mostly females. Both of my bosses are female. 4 of the 5 executives are female. 3. We've had some change recently, so I think it's 3. 3 of the 5 are female. Our owner CEO is male, but most of the leadership is female, and so we're really fortunate in that sense to have a diverse office.
Any more questions, anyone?
Just out of curiosity, is everybody here a student, or have some people graduated? Just to get a sense of who's on this.
I would say most of us are students.
Most are students. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm yeah, I'm available. If you guys want to connect on LinkedIn or anything, I'm more than happy to talk more outside of this larger call with any of you that need advice. More than happy to connect. So, oh, there's my LinkedIn profile. Internships, no internships right now. We're also like on a hiring freeze, as you can imagine. But we have plans to be back very soon. So my department will hopefully be hiring sooner than later. So, reach out if you'd like to connect. More than happy to talk.
Haley says, any
Thank you
final
so
advice for
much.
students?
Any final advice for students? Say yes to every opportunity that you come across. I mean, I can't emphasize it enough. I would not have the position that I'm in without really saying yes to every opportunity that I could that was interesting to me, and then when you say yes to that opportunity, do work your butt off, so I guess those are that's my biggest piece of advice.
Awesome. Well, Jake, thank you so much. We really appreciate how generous you are with your time. That was an
Yeah,
awesome talk.
no worries. And I mean it, reach out if anybody else has any additional questions.
Great. And yeah, I put Jake's LinkedIn in the chat in case you want to connect with him. And if you're interested in any more marketing, if you liked what you saw tonight, make sure to check out the St. Edward's Marketing Association. I'll put in a sign up link in the chat. We have a meeting next Monday, the 29th at 6 p.m. And we're going to do officer elections for the fall. And I share Jake's optimism that next semester will be in person and we'll go back to some semblance of normalcy. And I'm really excited for that. So if you're interested in being a part of the St. Edward's Marketing Association, make sure to check that out.
Yeah, everybody get vaccinated so we can all go back to in-person stuff, please.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off. Thanks to everyone. Really appreciate y'all showing up tonight. And thanks to Jake again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you.